Tonight's weather water cooler guest was a student of mine 15 years ago, and it's been a pleasure watching her career unfold since then. Dr. Mary Morris got her BS in meteorology from Penn State in 2012 and is now a scientist at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California. Welcome back to Penn State, Mary.
Hi.
Good to see you. Good to see you. So good to have you. So take us through your journey from your BS in meteorology at Penn State to working at JPL. I mean, that doesn't necessarily sound like a common career path.
Yeah, so when I was at Penn State, I really loved talking about the weather in terms of what was happening now and what happened in the past, but I wasn't really interested in forecasting the weather. But then I also found that I really like looking at satellite imagery. It was really interesting for me to see how different weather phenomenon manifested in different geostationary satellite imagery that we would typically look on when we're trying to diagnose an event. So I decided to go to grad school to learn more about the engineering side of things. And at grad school, I was able to learn how we design instruments to observe the Earth, how we design missions to answer specific scientific questions, and learn a little bit more about the engineering side of things. After that, I ended up at JPL because I wanted to continue on that path and continue to design missions as a part of JPL.
All right, so generally speaking, your position at JPL involves remote sensing. Tell everybody specifically what that means and how that actually takes you back to your meteorology roots.
Right. So remote sensing is just a way to indirectly estimate something about something else. And so what that means is instead of putting, say, an anemometer on the ocean on a buoy and estimating the wind speed from a point measurement, we put sensors and instruments up into space orbiting the Earth and estimate the wind speed on the ground based on how wavy the ocean looks. So it's a very indirect measurement, but it's kind of like magic.
So as far as your work at JPL, I noticed you're on a number of different teams, all sort of looking at different problems. And one of those teams involves something we talk about on Weather World all the time, storms or cyclones. What is your role on that team?
Yeah, so I got involved on that NASA mission in grad school, actually. And what I started off doing was using the observations to determine how big or strong hurricanes are. But then when I got to JPL, I wanted to continue working on that mission, so I had to propose to do more work. And I found out how useful the observations are for studying hydrology. So then I've continued on that mission to study how the mission can be used to observe inland water bodies.
Okay. So some hydrology work, which of course for the forecasting side of things, we're always interested in how much water is in the atmosphere and how much falls out of it. You're also on another team. I want to get this right. It's called the Compact Ocean Wind Vector Radiometer Team. What are you working on there?
Yeah, so that's a really cool mission that's operating right now on the International Space Station, actually. It's a DoD mission. The Navy is really interested in our observations because they use our observations for input into their own numerical weather forecasting systems. But we're also using it as a tech demo to show that we can do the same thing as previous legacy systems for a fraction of the cost. And so what we're doing is we're estimating things like ocean wind speed, direction, water vapor, and clouds, all things that are really important for the Earth system.
Right, and all from remotely from a mission that's
Right.
flying in space. And finally, you're the instrument specialist on a project that's looking at convection. Tell us what your role is there.
Yeah, so this is a new role for me. This is the first time I'm the instrument lead for a NASA mission. And what we're doing is, in my particular role, is I'm supporting developing a radiometer, which is just basically a fancy camera that observes the Earth, to estimate where there's high amounts of ice clouds in different storm structures. And so what we're doing is, using the radiometer, we can identify where the strongest parts of the convective storms are. And then together with the radars that are also part of the mission, we can then diagnose a little bit better or improve our understanding more about the whys and the whens and the hows of different convective storm processes.
All right. So, and those radars that you speak of are not the ones on the ground, but they're the ones, they're literally in
Right,
space.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's a constellation of spacecraft. So there'll be three radars, and then I'm on the radiometer team. So we'll be on the center spacecraft.
Okay. You have authored or co-authored several dozen papers. What's one in particular that you're really proud of?
Yeah, so this goes back to my grad school days. I remember working on this problem of how to use the unique observations from that mission to diagnose hurricane intensity and strength and structure. And it was a really, really cool project because it was the first time I was able to sort of work independently and kind of show that I've learned something in grad school and then can apply it and do independent research myself.
Very nice. We always ask our weather water cooler guests as the last question, do you have any favorite memories of your time at Penn State?
Yeah, so I think all of my good memories are, usually around food and friends and family and all that good stuff. So I'm very fortunate. I met my husband at Penn State. We have a lot of fond memories going out on dates to this restaurant called Home D. My friends were all on the west side of campus. We would always end up at Cafe 210, and that was always a good time. And then I just go back to my family. 4 out of 5 of us are Penn Staters, so we would always enjoy our time at Penn State. In particular, we would always make time for a stop at the waffle shop before we headed home.
Okay, shout outs to some Penn State restaurants. Dr. Mary Morris, remote sensing scientist at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much.
And we will be back in a moment with more.